So that brings us to the next area. I'm going to sneak in here real quick. So this thing, sir.
Fine. Finally.
Okay, so that's this. And we're going to place all your minis. If you want to just place all your minis along that rock right there.
All right.
They need for pass you.
Put me out front. Right, yeah.
And you come to an area that's filled with it's like blackish rock. And it's very dreary looking, and there's these very alien looking mushrooms that are there, and different plants and stuff. And looking around, you also see the first thing that you actually see is 3 women, but they don't look nice at all. They've got wings, and the closer you look at them, they look like harpies. And they've got, I don't know if you guys are familiar with a cat of nine tails is. It's kind of like a whip that has spikes on it, for lack of a better term. And they're sitting there and they're kind of leering at you. And they leer at you first, and then they look up in a different direction, and you see 3 women that are standing on the top of this one blackened hill. And they've got a loom, and they're doing some kind of weaving. One of them is young, like a girl. The other one is like a woman who's in the prime of her life. And then the last one appears to be like an elderly woman. And they pick their heads up and they look at you and they say, "Your fate has already been told. Why are you here?" So they're looking for some kind of an answer for why you're coming back from the dead.
Hades has given us a second chance, or a chance at redemption in this world.
He can do as he pleases with the dead, but you can do nothing without a fate. We are the 3 fates, and you've heard of them. The 3 fates are the ones. The young child represents birth, the woman in the prime of her life represents life, and the elderly woman represents death. And the 3 of them work together to weave on their loom basically the threads of fates for all mortals to determine what kind of life they're going to have. And what they essentially tell you is that they've already weaved the threads of your fates, and those threads have been cut. And so now you come back standing before them without any kind of a thread. And they want to know, they don't care that Hades has let you go free. That's his domain. He can do that. But now you're asking them to weave a new fate for you. And that's work on their part that they don't. So they basically say to you, they say, "You have no right to be here. This is not the way things should be. But if you can convince us, if you can offer us something of value, we will weave you new fates and you can press on with your journey to the surface world." The harpy-looking creatures that are known as the Furies, they're the punishers of the gods. Anytime anyone offends the gods enough, the Furies are the ones that come flying out and basically whip people to death or whatever. They're sitting there with their cat of nine tails. They don't look like pleasant women at all. They got these big harpy wings on them. And they're just waiting to be unleashed by the Fates. You can tell basically the Fates are the ones that control whether or not they're going to attack you. So the Fates are giving you an opportunity not to engage in combat, but to bargain your way forward. And your challenge, of course, is you each have 2 gold pieces, a torch, and a black belt pouch that you definitely have to keep. You don't have anything else on you, so you have to consider what else you can come up with that you could bargain for them in order for them to let you out.
Miss, lady, madam, be ye goddesses?
We are immortals, but we are not goddesses.
I can only suggest that you do the same as we and do what the god is saying to do. So, I don't have anything of value to give you, except I've been promised by Hades a chance at going back to the land of the living. Is there anything there that I can do for you after my arrival?
She looks at you and she says, What is your nature? What will you do? Will you rob and reave, or will you become a peddler that, sells, a merchant that sells things? Will you try and settle down and have a happy life? She asks you what it is that your intention when you make it back to the world, if you make it back to the world, that you will do with your time. And she's basically, she's talking to you, they kind of all turn their heads and they're all looking at each of you to determine basically what it is that you intend to do. And meantime, the harpies are like, their clawed feet are going back and forth. They're antsy to get, released off the leash, so to speak, and do what they do. So she asked you what kind of person you intend to be.
Well, I won't be a bird lover. I can tell you that. I've always been...
You're over 2 on birds, aren't you?
I've always been a little stronger than most, but dumber too. I'll probably move things that are heavy and be of help to those even smaller than myself. Other than that, I can't make any promises that I'm going to do great things, but I can try. It's all any of us can do. We don't know what the future holds, unlike you three.
They look at each of you. They basically ask for a short summary of what it is you intend to do.
Right.
Now, each of you, even the new ones that came through, basically went through the same spiel with Hades, signed the same contract. He's looking for adventure and gold, basically.
Well, I was a jeweler in my past life, so I will continue to be a jeweler. But once I make my fortune, I will give a good amount of fortune back to my hometown, help improve the town and the poor people there.
Okay. What are you going to do?
I'm going to be a servant to my master. He's the one that I signed to deal with. I'm only here to do his bidding, what he needs me to do, and what he wants me to do is bring stories to him.
Okay. And you?
Given that I'm a Knight of St. Idris with a chaotic background, it's only right that I serve Hades, and given that he's given me a second chance, I would be a warrior under Hades.
Okay.
I plan to be a warrior and dabble in magic.
For what ends?
To seek great adventure
Okay.
and great reward.
All right. Everybody make a charisma check.
30-20.
Nice.
6.
No?
15.
15, nice. 16?
12.
12. 3 of you made it. So they kind of look at all of you, and especially the 3 of you, and they seem well pleased with what you're saying. They're like, they believed your sincerity. They believe the both of you are like, okay, they're going to serve the gods. So they're not being arrogant about being given the second chance again. And the 2 of you, they weren't super convinced by, but they're thinking, well, if they're spending time with these guys, maybe. So they break out their loom and they start weaving fates. And they spend a few minutes weaving up with threads like that, and they throw them up. And then basically they go and they float up to the ceiling. When you look up, the entire ceiling is covered with like a star of stars full of webs, basically. And all the fates of all mortals or whatever it is. And it only takes them a few minutes to get through this. And they say, you may pass, may the gods be with you. And you have pleased the fates. And the harpies seem to be very upset, but they obediently stand there and they step aside and they give you access to go step out, and they point to the direction for you to go. And she says, Charon awaits. You must deal with him next. And she shows you where to go to. So you come to this lady, and she's got like, she's a spiritual. She's a spirit form. And she's got like pock marks and stuff all over her face. And she says that she died from the plague, and that her husband and her son probably also died from the plague. They were sick when she was passing. They were just getting it. So she's been waiting at the shoreline here for them to show up so they can be together forever. But they had provided her with the 2 gold pieces to pay in order to go down. But when the father and the son died, she doesn't know if either somebody stole the money from them or they, lost it or whatever it is. But for whatever reason, they have not shown up. And so she's very sad because she's not being reunited in the afterlife with, her husband and her child. And so she's just weeping, and she doesn't ask you to do anything. She doesn't say, but that's why she's upset. And you realize that there's all these different things that are happening throughout the world, tragedies large and small, that this is probably not a tragedy for most people. They don't care. It doesn't impact them. But on the individual level, you're just like, there's all these things that Hades has to deal with for how do I judge these people? What are they worth? They didn't go adventuring, but they were a good wife or they were a good husband. Or, you know what I'm saying? And so there's all these things that are going on, and you're just looking and you're seeing, it sort of brings a little bit of a humanity to what's happening. It's not just a death factory, although that's what you're experiencing, trying to claw your way back to the surface world. The natural order of events is that when somebody dies, they pay their way, Charon brings them down, they go into the underworld, and they spend the rest of their lives, they spend the rest of the eternity with their loved ones or whatever fate that they deserved. So she's there and she's crying for a little bit, and then after a while, it's hard to tell because there's not really a sense of time in the underworld, right? There's no sun and moon and stars or anything, but eventually you have no doubt who this is that shows up, and this big boat shows up, and there's a skeleton in a black robe that's basically steering it. That comes up, and he looks at you, and he says in a voice that's like coming from underneath the earth itself. It doesn't seem to be coming from the figure in this kind of ghostly voice. And he looks at you in your corporeal forms, and he says, "What seek you? Why are you here?" And you realize you need to go up the river. You need to go in the wrong direction of the river of Styx, back to the land of the living, which is not normally the direction that he carries people. What do you say?
I hold up my 2 gold coins and say, "These good for going the other way."
He looks at you and he says, "They are not. I am only to ferry the dead to the land of the dead. I cannot assist you actively."
What if I were to tell you that the one you serve under says otherwise?
The one I serve under has chartered me to only use my efforts to bring the dead to him. You may ride with me, but you will need to do the rowing upstream. So he's not charging you anything, but he's telling you if you want to get into his boat, you're going to be the ones that actually have to do the rowing in order to go up the river of Styx. And he goes, "Be wary, the way is not easy, and you could lose your soul forever."
Well, just gonna hang out here for all eternity. I'm good
Okay.
climb the boat.
In the boat?
That saves me a couple gold.
Can you go ahead and put your minis in the boat for me, please?
Dexterity check.
Put this little fella right in the leadership position here.
Pretty sure you've had the worst luck with leadership position.
Yes, but that's okay. Is there a way, Todd, to get up along the edge?
There is
Is that
not.
Oh.
There is not. It is the river Styx, and there's almost like some kind of a force field that prevents you from going. It is literally just the river itself. There's invisible video game walls there.
Wow.
The river is obviously significantly longer than this one little stretch, okay? So he takes the boat and he faces it so it's going upstream because the river is flowing from the land of the living to the land of the dead, okay? And he turns his boat and this whole area is basically, again, there's like the floating rocks. You see like bats and stuff or whatever that are flying above, but they're like kind of spectral beings kind of thing. They don't appear to take any notice of you, but they're just flying around. And the river is, when you get in the boat and start going forward, it's making the noise. At first you think it sounds like a river, but then the more that you're rowing and going, it's starting to not sound normal at all. And you realize it is the sound, when you look in the river, you literally see the faces of the souls of deceased, of anyone who has ever drowned is passing by, and they're calling to you. And they're essentially slowly trying to drive you mad and get you to dive into the river, be with them, almost like the sirens would do. But that the souls are calling to you to be part of them, to be part of the river itself. Everybody needs to make a strength check in order to make it past the first area that they're in.
4.
That's a no.
Yep.
5? That's a no.
Oh.
11?
11?
11.
11 is a yes. That's 1.
19.
A 19, that's 2.
13.
13, that's 3. Okay. So you only have to spend, you're spending, it's hard because you're in the Underdark, so there is no time. It feels like an hour-ish amount of a time you're rowing. Everybody needs to make a charisma check, also to avoid jumping into the water. But you get to roll at advantage because you're at this section of the river because you're still close to the bank.
15.
Make it.
11.
You make it.
15.
You make it.
14.
14, you make it. Patrick.
Charisma, that's 10.
10. Patrick starts to scramble and he like can't take the sound and he starts to jump and he wants to jump overboard. Who rolled the highest? 17?
15.
15 was the highest?
Uh,
I
Roll
think
11. It's
you
double
were-
11, so.
I think
Yeah, I believe 15 was
15 was the highest. Who was the 15? Was that you?
I was 15.
That was Mike?
Yeah,
You were
15. We try to pull him back.
One of you gets to make a strength check to see if you can grab him and pull him from diving overboard.
I'll do it, because I'm strong.
Cool.
19 on the dice.
Easily.
Nice.
So he's like grabbing his head and he's like, no, I have to be with the dead. And he goes to jump and you grab him by his collarbone, you yank him back and slam him into the bottom of the boat pretty damn hard to try and bring him back to his senses.
Sit down, asshole.
Don't rock the boat. So, and Charon's like, all will join the dead at some time. And it's like he's saying to you, they've saved you for now, but you're going to die anyway. And for him, he says it's just sort of matter of factly. He's not so, but you like saved him. You're going to try and get it. So you guys make it up to the center part of the river itself. Now you make a normal charisma check to see. Well, first you roll again to see whether or not you're able to get out of there. So roll your strength checks. Yes, roll your strength to see if you're able to make it out of that area.
6.
What?
Nice one.
Nice.
Nice. 6.
Failed.
8.
Failed.
5.
Failed.
8.
Failed. So so yours counts as 2, but you need 3 in order to succeed. So you guys are not able to paddle hard enough in order to make it out. So you're actually going to have to make 2 charisma checks as you spend more time in this area trying to get forward. So roll your first charisma check. Not an advantage now, just regular rolls, straight rolls.
9.
That's a fail. You go to jump.
I rolled 2 12s.
Yeah, okay, you make it.
3.
You go to jump.
18.
You make it.
11.
11, you make it. So you've got an 18. Who do you try to save? You got 2 people that are scrambling to try and jump out.
It's Steven and
Me.
You know, I feel like you've had the worst of it. I'm gonna try to give you another chance.
Same strength check.
Yep.
He's jumping, he's trying to get out again.
At the end, I see you.
12?
12 is enough.
Oh.
So he goes and rocking the boat, and you're able to grab him and give him back in. The problem is when you yank him back into the boat and the boat rocks in the other direction, it assists him in just jumping into the water.
into the drink.
Curse splash.
That's what he wanted.
Down he goes, and you hear him drowning. The last thing you see is his face bubbling up, and it turns into almost like the water itself, and he becomes one of the souls in the river of dead, the river of Styx.
I'm officially caught up with
Go ahead.
everyone. Is
Yeah.
the death part?
One stick. I know.
And now you got to roll a second time because remember you didn't make it out. You weren't able to battle through. So,
All right, that's a charisma.
yeah. Let's see.
Strength.
Yep.
Paddling?
Paddle. No, charisma check. You make a second charisma check.
It's 15.
You make it.
Well, I rolled 12 12s.
So that's fine. You made it. 20. Nat 20. That counts as 2. So you're the nat 20. You sit there and you realize, no, this is all natural. This is the way of the world, and the sound of the voices calling to you. Instead of it being a threat, you just accept that this is the way the world is supposed to be. So it doesn't become any kind of a fear factor. It doesn't trigger a fear response in you, and you're just like you accept as being part of it, and then you become immune to the sound of the voices. You do not have to make any more checks. You're going to roll the checks, but you can't fail them. Okay. For that, you'll roll your strength checks, but you can't fail any more charisma checks.
Okay.
So you're immune to the call of the river of Styx. So that's 3 successes total. So you're able to make it out of that, and you finally get to an area a few hours later. It seems like where you can see the banks of the river of Styx itself and the land of the living, and you see a row of souls are here.
Even with your skinny body, you always brag that you had what it took to be a great warrior. But your family just laughed and said the only thing you had was a big head. When you found a magical helmet, you were certain it was the first step to getting a full suit of armor and would allow you to adventure. Sadly, it was a cursed helm of shrinking that squeezed and popped your head like a zit the moment you put it on. Guess you proved them wrong.
It was a short but illustrious career.
Yep.
And Hades has decided to give you another chance. So, Bamf, you appear. A new character appears. What's your new character's name?
Baldrum.
Baldrum. Okay, Baldrum appears on the boat next to him. You two were getting used to like people just dying left and right, and you started to want to keep your distance from them because they're not surviving so good. But so make one last set of strength checks to see if you can roll. Because you can see you can see the shoreline where all of the souls of the dead are lined up and they're waiting for Charon to arrive so they can get on the boat and head downriver, downstream to the land of the dead to finish their journey. What'd you get, sir?
4.
Failed.
11.
That's a success.
Nat 20.
Nat 20, so that's 2 successes, that's 3.
Dirty 22.
Dirty 20, you made it.
17.
So you guys were just like, fuck this shit, I'm not staying here any longer. I hate this place. And you're like going like crazy. And you're able to make it through, make one last set of charisma checks at advantage.
I don't need
You don't need to make it an advantage because you're almost there. So the sound of the rivers is starting to fade as you get near the land of the living.
19.
19, you make
11.
it. You make it.
18.
18,
12.
you make it. You make it also. So, and you're immune. You basically start talking to them, telling them that there's nothing to be afraid of, and
We got this.
tell them to cowboy the fuck up, and that's exactly what everybody does.
Keep rowing. Don't be
You keep rowing like that. You start doing synchronized rowing and whatnot, and you actually make it to the shoreline itself. And you see a whole line of souls that are standing there waiting to get on the boat, who don't wait for you to even depart. They just walk up and they sit down like right up with their spirits, so they don't, take up the same space or whatever. But you also see 2 spirits that are standing by the side, and each one as they get in, they hand Charon their 2 gold pieces. When you get up and you get off of the boat, you see these 2 spirits, one large and one small, standing there. And the larger spirit has hand on the shoulder of the smaller one, and they're just kind of shaking their head. And the younger one is saying, now Papa, and the older one is saying, and the larger one is saying, no. Do you guys do anything, or what are you going to do?
Chili gold.
What'd you say? They don't seem to have any money to pay. That's the other spirits are getting on Charon's ship, the ferryman, and they're paying him the 2 gold pieces and then sitting down. And these 2, they're standing on the banks. They don't appear to have any gold.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I'll-
go talk.
I'll hand my.
I'll give 2 gold.
Okay.
I'll give the child 2 gold.
Okay, so you give 2 golds to the child, and he's so thankful, and the father figure's just like, oh, bless you, thank you for saving my son. My wife is waiting for him for sure.
We've seen her.
Oh, she waits, you've seen her. And his eyes just well up, and he's just seemed overjoyed with emotion that at least his son is going to be reunited, and he's so deeply thankful to you.
Yeah, I'll give my gold to the father.
So, and you hand your 2 gold. Now remember, those are the only 2 gold that you have. Doesn't mean you can't earn more later, but so you hand it to him, and they don't know how to thank you enough, and bless you, and they will tell Hades of your good deeds and whatnot. And they get on board the ship, and they get on board the ship, and they with the rest of the souls, and they turn around and they start heading downstream, and they're just waving to you the entire time because they're so overwhelmingly grateful that they've been reunited. They were afraid that they would end up being returned to the surface world as undead if they stayed there too long. The downside is that now you're back in the land of the living, and all of a sudden all of the lights fade and you're in almost total pitch blackness. You need your torches. So now all of you, even the ones that died or whatever, everybody's given 2 gold, a torch, and I assume someone's going to light a torch.
I'll light a torch.
Okay.
Those of us who still have our gold can see, or
No.
we're all blind.
You're in the land of the living now, so nobody can see.
Gotcha. Well, you gave him your gold, so I'll burn my torch.
Okay.
He lit his. I have a torch. Okay, well, if there's any combat that's going to take place, I want us to have 2 torches.
We don't have any weapons.
Well, hey.
Steven, you're this guy again?
I'm the red guy.
Yeah, right, right. Okay.
If our light source gets snuffed, we're screwed.
Do you want a second torch going too?
Yeah, I'm gonna burn
Okay.
my torch.
And you're the bald guy, tall,
I'm
right?
the tiny little dude.
You're the tiny little dude right there. So you get out your flint and steel, and you light up the torches. You're able to see right here because of the dim of the underworld, but where you need to go, you realize you looking like it's pitch black. You've made it to the land of the living. You're not up on the surface yet, but you have transitioned, and you're out of Hades or the Underdark, and so you're halfway home, so to speak. And you begin trudging through the darkness, through long and winding catacombs. And eventually, after a good half an hour or more, judging by the the torches themselves and how much they burn out, you come to an area where there's three forks in it, right? There's one that goes right, there's one that goes left, and then there's one that's straight ahead. And off of the torchlight, you can see some kind of a monument that's there. Do you want to interact with it, or do you want to bypass it?
I'd like to look at the monument.
Okay. So you head over to the monument itself, and when you look at it, it appears to be some kind of a shrine. And the closer you get to it, you realize it's a shrine to Hades himself. What do you go to do?
What's around the shrine?
There's some bones and there's some coins there. There's some dead rats. There's not a whole heck of a lot. It's dusty. It doesn't seem like it's been used that much. Maybe it was somebody that came down here and wanted to try to retrieve a loved one, and so they built a shrine to Hades or something to hopefully have him bless their journey. But of course, you guys know that Cerberus is there at the door and he's never going to let them through. But that wouldn't stop somebody from, they're going to do their best. So that's what it is. It's basically a skull, but as you're looking at it, it has Hades' face, and then it morphs into a skull, and then it's back to Hades' face, and it's going back. So it's clearly some magically animated shrine or altar to him.
Don't touch it, lads. Let's get the hell out of here.
When you approach it, what do you do?
I'll kneel and I'll say a short prayer at Hades, asking for his blessing to finally make it back to the real world.
Hades looks at you and says, though you have only been with your new compatriots for a short time, it's kind of all is like telepathy in your head. You feel him speaking to you. You don't hear the words directly, but it's like placed into your heart. Yep. You feel like he says to you that when you had the opportunity to truly honor me, which was to allow the system to work and that father and son to make it to be reunited with his wife, as is the natural way of things, you were willing to give of yourself, seeking nothing in return. And so he says he gives you his blessing, and you get a luck token.
Yay!
And everybody gets a luck token.
I was gonna kind of clean it up,
Sure. So
dust it off, and
because you gave a couple of gold pieces, you got one? Okay. Because you gave a couple of gold pieces to those lost spirits that were trapped on the banks of the living and unable to make it down the river Styx, Hades blessed you, realizing that you honored him by advancing the natural order of things, allowing them to be reunited with their loved ones. You didn't seek anything in return. There was nothing that they could give you. So it was a truly altruistic act. And so he's blessed you. And so each one of you, everybody in the party has a luck token, which apparently is necessary. And you know that you have his blessing.